take two.
Right. Okay, so I don't know what we're going to do in terms of like the 20 minutes or so that we sort of kind of got some podcasting done. But we may not, maybe we won't even use that. I don't know. This is running much better. So let's do a quick recap here. Joshua Thomson and Joshua Peters are joining us from Atlas Maior, a very interesting kind of mixing elements of a quartet, but with some flexibility, mixing all kinds of ethnic and worldly music, various instrumentation, kind of like progressive jazz meets Middle Eastern, meets Indian, meets all kinds of different interesting things. And one of the things we initially were talking about was one of the instruments, which Josh Peters plays, which he joined in 2018, is the oud or oud, which is like an 11-string. So is it like 12-string guitars where there's little sets of strings, right? Like there's two.
Yeah, it's double coursed.
Are they unison or octave or what?
They're unisons.
Unison.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we had talked a little bit about that, and then Joshua Thomson, founding member, plays saxophone. Do you play anything other than that? You play different saxes, though, right?
I play mostly alto sax, and then I double on some different flutes. I play this Chinese flute called the halusi, and I play various flutes from time to time, trying to do more of it.
Okay.
But I'm not one of these like saxophone doublers. Like, I mean, I can, and I sometimes do, but I would like to do more of it. But I've been focusing mostly on alto saxophone and making that my voice, and cultivating that voice, you know, in all the musical contexts that I play in, you know. So that's the goal, you know.
Do you play other woodwinds as well? Saxophone, flute? What's the crossover like to say like clarinet and some other, you know, members of the woodwind family? Is it very different, or is it like with a lot of stringed instruments, right? You kind of, once you kind of have your bearings on one, you go, oh, well, this is tuned this way, and kind of start picking out the chords and, you know, figuring out some patterns, and it makes it a lot you know, you can, I'm sure it's the same. But what is it like in terms of the technique of the mouth, the lips? Obviously, it's arranged differently, but do you feel like playing one woodwind transcends to another, or is it a very different thing per instrument?
There's definitely a lot that translates over, but the embouchure and the technique is often extremely different. So, like for example, like Western classical flute, the fingerings are very similar to the saxophone, like almost identical in a lot of ways. But the embouchure is super different. It takes a lot more air, for example. It takes more air to blow across a flute than it does to play a baritone sax, for example.
Interesting.
Which you wouldn't, because you're blowing across the instrument in the instrument.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, you would, for some reason wouldn't think that. You think the flute kind of lighter in area, but that's interesting. What's your first instrument?
Alto saxophone.
Alto sax, initial instrument. So was this from like, and now we talked, you are from, oh gosh, Dearborn?
I'm from Dearborn, Michigan. It's a enclave. It's a Middle Eastern enclave of Detroit.
Okay. So you got a lot of really cool culture and influence being there, and like you were saying, there are a lot of different cultures right there. Plus, you're in the Motown Mecca, and so you just got all this cool exposure, I think, pretty early on. But where did you start? What inspired you to start playing music? How old were you? Was it a band thing, or what led to you playing sax to begin with?
Yeah, it was a classic. You're in school and you're in. Let's see. When you're in third grade, you get to play the flutophone or whatever, and then in fourth grade they start, you know, introducing instruments, or maybe it's third grade. Yeah, and then, you know, I just knew I wanted to play it right away. My mom played flute, my dad played trumpet.
Oh, okay.
And I grew up around music. My grandmother actually worked in the studio, and a lot of the studios of Detroit, with like the whole Motown scene.
Oh, wow.
Like her good friend was like with the Joe Hunter, the keyboard player, who was like on a lot of the Funk Brothers sessions and everything. She actually helped him edit his autobiography.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. I grew up hearing a lot of stories. I grew up you know, just hearing a lot about that tradition. One of my grandmother's very best friends was Choker Campbell, who was the one who did all the arranging and was the band leader for one of the two kind of like Motown Review touring groups, and this was like in the 70s, like late 70s. With members of the Four Tops and the Temptations, those versions of those bands at that time,
right?
Later, because obviously they split off and changed a lot over the years with all the labels and people leaving and new people coming into these particular groups. But so that's sort of a backdrop, a lot of like my history, and just going to like what used to be Montreux Jazz Festival in Detroit. It has a corporate name, but I'm not going to repeat. Just like going to that free festival, it's like the biggest free festival in America, I think, for jazz, and just seeing all these incredible acts from a very young age, and the opportunity to be surrounded by that music in Detroit. I mean, that's one of the strengths of the city. Mm-hmm. And then when I went to when I was living in Ann Arbor, when I was at the University of Michigan, their program, Josh Peters was talking about being in Denton in the music program there and the music scene there. Also, Ann Arbor has a great, phenomenal, multiple series ranging from Indian classical music to Middle Eastern music. Like when I was a student there, the great violinist Simon Shaheen from Beirut, he was doing like an in-residency month thing in Detroit. So he would be at Wayne State University, he would be at the University of Michigan. So I got to see and like sit in on master classes, and so that really piqued my interest at a time, at a very specific like developmental time in my music, relating to my curiosity in music. So it kind of hit me at the right time. But just a lot of things like just amazing like avant-garde jazz shows, amazing like funk shows and things happening in Detroit. So there was a lot there that I could dig into, and that was pretty accessible to me. I would say in my definitely in my early 20s for sure, and being a teenager and stuff prior to that, up and through up into the time that I moved to Austin in 2008.
Okay, cool. Yeah. That answered that question too. And to say what you just did, because we were talking about it before we had some technical problems. Josh Peters, from Austin, Texas, but went up to school to study music in Denton, right? Is that right? What is it called? North
Texas. Yeah, North Texas. Though I'm not from Austin, but
I thought you said you were from Austin. Oh
no, I'm from like a little.
Oh yeah, little town.
Not even a town. Way out in the middle of nowhere, kind of in between San Antonio and Del Rio, kind of.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
In that little stretch.
Yeah. I remember that when I was a kid, because my grandma lived in Del Rio, and we'd always drive through San Antonio. I lived in College Station for a long time, and we drive through there. And then there was the Hondo and Uvalde and Vacaville, and unfortunately, in recent times, Uvalde has become a tragedy. But I remember all those small towns. So that was your little.
That's where I was. Yeah, that's where.
Very different from the Detroit sort of. With all the influences Josh Thomson was getting there, you're kind of out in the sticks, like you're in some old country. I think you were saying you listen to classic rock, right? You got into some Zeppelins, and or your mom, your parents, or somebody listened to that, so you kind of had some initial influence in that realm.
Yeah, because I was living growing up, it was me, my mom, and my grandparents, and so my grandparents were playing all the old country and swing and stuff from the 50s and 60s and even some earlier stuff, and my mom was playing all of her favorite 70s and 80s music, which was a lot of different stuff. There was some rock and some kind of early metal stuff and some prog stuff, and there was like all your 80s synth pop, and so there was a lot of a lot of that kind of cross section of American music from my mom, and then also a pretty good bit of classical and jazz.
Nice.
Which was something that, I can thank my mom for, because she kind of introduced that into my musical diet pretty early on, because she had read somewhere that it was good for brain development.
Right. Yeah. It's being required in every school during nap time.
Yeah. So, and that was what I really gravitated toward, was specifically the jazz, pretty early on. But yeah, I had a very, very different, kind of experience from Thomson growing up in the very urban, diverse kind of world.
Well, your family did well by you, though. It sounds like they gave you a nice palette of, stuff to kind of absorb. And you said you started with piano. Yeah. How old were you when you started playing piano?
I think I was 6 or 7.
Okay. And then not too long after, guitar and kind of this.
Yeah, I kind of started picking up guitar a few years later.
And you played trumpet, right? And
trumpet,
I'm remembering.
Yeah, and trumpet was the instrument I actually went to school for. And that was kind of my main instrument for a number of years. And it still is. I've been getting back into it. I kind of took time off from trumpet after school for a few years. And it's an instrument that really if you take time off, it really takes a toll on your embouchure and your ability to get back to where you were.
Sure. Josh, do you feel the same on saxophone or any woodwind for that matter? Like there's that factor, the physical factor.
Absolutely. I mean, if you take time off, I feel like, saxophone can be a little bit more forgiving than brass instruments. I would say brass even more so. But definitely flute, saxophone. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to have a consistent regimen to be able to deliver to any type of standard. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, like a lot of times, I mean, like I'll practice, and like coming out of the pandemic. Like you realize, like when you're not gigging, like there's like musicians will talk about like there's like gigging shape, and there's like right, okay, but I definitely feel like with horns, like for me personally, my experience, playing and the pandemic, I did so much rehearsing, so much practicing, and it was very healthy from that standpoint. That was one of the nice things about the pandemic. There weren't too many nice things about the pandemic, obviously, but I also realized that like once I got back to playing shows again, like that's a whole nother mentality, physical mentality, and it's like that for everybody. But I think when you're pushing air into it, you're breathing, and you also have to take care of yourself, or else you're gonna sound like shit. Honestly,
I feel I relate to that as just from like a vocal standpoint, something that is actually requiring lung capacity and breath, and because it's like I can sit around and play some songs on sitting down on an acoustic guitar and maybe around the house or whatever, but then it's like getting on stage and like exerting that energy under the lights and that whole thing. It's like, that's very different. And I've found that for me, if I'm not in shape or consistently doing it, like coming back into doing that, or even just a rehearsal, it's very different, with the band and everything amped up, so to speak, and all that. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, like I am out of shape. And it always kind of takes me a little bit of time to kind of get back there. So I imagine it's very similar for those types of instruments. One thing I wanted to ask about horns, we're dealing with woodwinds and brass, two different things, but like I know obviously like you've got trumpet B flat, you've got these that not everything's concert pitch. Are the saxophones all concert, or are you in different?
Saxophones are alto, and baritone are in E flat, the E flat instruments. So we're transposing, and then tenor and soprano are in B flat. That's the easiest explanation.
But you guys are actually on the same page with the B flat business, right? Trumpet and sax.
Not trumpet and alto, trumpet and tenor.
Tenor, yeah.
And soprano.
Oh, I thought you said so. Alto and baritone are
alto
E
is
flat.
E flat. Yeah.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
you're transposing up a minor third, or how does that?
It's actually you're actually it's above, but you transpose down.
Okay, so yeah, so you're transposing down a minor third.
Yeah.
For that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So and it's funny because we had this conversation with this balama player, and I feel like I'm one of the few people that understand him because I live my life in the realm of E flat. But he has like this relative like moving, like he has two options of a tonal center for his instrument, and sometimes it's in B flat, it's in E flat, and sometimes I think it's in E. And anyways, it causes a lot of problems. But
what instrument?
It's a Turkish instrument called the balama, also known as saz.
That's not what's the big triangle guitar bass thing?
You're thinking of balalaika, probably.
Balalaika, right?
Yeah.
Makes me think of the guys, the Balalinka brothers, right? Those guys.
Yeah.
One of the other bands that break out the instruments that does average folk are like, whoa, what's that thing?
No, their van is great. Like,
their van.
I love that van. Like, it's great concept.
Yeah, man. I was, Josh Robinson, the Invincible Czars. I think he may have even reached out to you. I know your name came up when we were talking about touring and
I remember
versatile. Yeah, for versatile woodwind players and stuff. And but Aaron Russell played in that band for a while, but now he also played with Flying Balinka Brothers, and he's Balalinka Brothers. And now they're out. I think some kind of cool traveling circus gig or some crazy shit. I haven't kept up with it very well, but I do remember that van. I saw those guys way back in the day at Ruta Maya. Did you ever play that place? I imagine you probably did.
Yeah,
it's been shut down a while now, but
a long time ago now. Yeah, that was like one of the epicenters of the scene 10 years ago. And then it's just because there was a long history because Ruta Maya was downtown and it moved in the Penfield and all that. But hey, going back to the Invincible Czars, this is kind of an origin story of the band. So I used to live above Phil Davidson.
Right. Yeah. Has Phil ever played with you guys? Because you said something.
No, he hasn't.
Oh man, yeah, I know Phil loves you guys, but
he's an old
Phil's
friend
awesome,
of mine.
Man. So good.
And when the band was getting started, he was our neighbor. So
no kidding.
Yeah, there's like that old connection, and Phil is a sweet guy, and a very talented player. And we would have to coordinate his lessons with our rehearsals and
yeah, right. Yeah, man. It's such a small, I always find the 6 degrees thing happening regardless, even worldwide somewhat. But here in Austin, I mean, there's so many musicians and so many bands. It's like daunting and impossible to keep up with. But at the same time, it's funny how you always kind of go, oh, yeah, and then you were neighbors with that guy and you knew that guy. And I mean, you and I, meeting in 2009 or whatever with a jam with Mike Molina. My Bastard Children, that's the name of the band.
That's it.
That's the one.
Children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I'm on 2 tracks or something.
Yeah. It's a very sort of progressive rock meets jazz, jammy kind of, stuff like that. But man. And then it's funny because seeing your name around, maybe we've crossed paths a few times. I don't remember, but I saw you recently at South by Southwest. Tell us about that. Have you played South by before? Was this the first year? And how does that whole thing come about?
We were accepted as a band into South by Southwest in 2020. That didn't happen, obviously. So this was our second year, I guess, technically being in the festival or being affiliated with the festival,
right,
or whatever, right? I played South by myself and other groups since consistently since 2013, and then I played South by. I think the first time I moved here in 2008, I was playing African music with this guy Boubacar Daibate at Copa, which is another great club that no longer exists. That was another place that was like kind of an epicenter of kind of the world music scene for a number of years. That was on Congress.
I have not familiar with that place. I don't.
Yeah, it was like a salsa club. Yeah, it was a great club, and there used to be all kinds of stuff that was happening there. So like Copa, Momo's.
Oh,
and Ruta Maya, those are like the 3 of the scene from back then that are, not around anymore. But that was the vibe back then, But
Where
yeah,
was it
I mean,
played for South by? You had, I don't know how many shows you had. I think I saw you guys at a place. I think there was well, it's maybe bad to say now, Russian theme, or what was that bar you played at though? Am I thinking of the right place?
Yeah. Go ahead.
What was that place called?
That's well, it was Russian House.
Right, Russian House.
And then it was, I don't know if they have permanently renamed it House Nostrovia.
Well, it doesn't exist now.
But now it doesn't exist. It's gone.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
it's gone. It's gone.
It was a cool place, man.
It was a very cool place, and
really
it was
like
a good. It was a really good people, good food.
Darn.
Great atmosphere, and it was it was a place that we played in. We played with Indimaj there quite a bit. Atlas Maior has played there a number of times.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I don't know if they're going to reopen somewhere or if it's just done, but hopefully they'll find another spot.
Yeah. I always think of this place too, back to the Beleniko Brothers. Like, I think I saw them once at some Mediterranean restaurant down. Maybe it's by North Loop or something. I could be wrong.
Probably Farah's,
right?
Probably Farah's.
You guys ever play there?
Yeah, I used to play there. Yeah.
Not there anymore either?
Yeah, it's gone too.
Anymore.
Shit, man.
Oh.
Yeah.
The hell, Austin? Nobody can afford fucking rent anymore, right? That's losing their leases. Anyway.
Yeah.
Now you guys have wonderful times, right?
It's great.
$400. I was just gonna bring up touring. Like, what a horrible time to tour because gas is just you might as well, walk. I don't know. It's everything is just so stupid expensive right now. But you guys have toured as well, and not only nationally, you've toured internationally. You've played. I don't know if it was some festivals, but also just toured the region, like France, Spain, the Mediterranean, stuff like that, right?
Yeah. We haven't been back since the pandemic. But we want to, obviously start touring again when it makes sense and when the time is right. Because during every album cycle and everything, you want to get everything together. And so like coming out of the pandemic, our mission has been to ideally push things forward in a way that makes sense, and we have to be a little bit more selective right now because of the barriers you're talking about with gas and everything. But I mean, we will be hitting the road hopefully next year. And we're working on that now. But yeah, we've historically toured in Spain, France, and in Turkey, and we would love to expand on that. So
are you more looking into touring Europe, those kind of tours, as opposed to the U.S., or do you do U.S. stuff equally, or do you have a preference for one or the other? Does one seem better than the other? I would feel like regionally in some of those European countries would make sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, because sometimes you go to places that you think that you would have like a really good fan base because you of perceived commonalities and music, and sometimes it's not quite like that. Sometimes we have receptive audiences and places that you wouldn't even think of. So, I mean, to answer your question, we try to do a bit of both, and while also expanding to new markets that make sense for us, because obviously you want to have you want to route tours, you want something to be sustainable and consistent, and it's not always easy bringing a band overseas, so you got to have some good anchors over there to anchor gigs to make that stuff happen. Fortunately, we have a great rhythm section and both in Spain and France that we've used. So the nice thing about how we structure our group is we plan for that kind of flexibility, to be able to do that. But it's also nice to have a consistent group and bring the same guys out on the road. You know what I mean? So little by little, baby steps. It's been a long grind, and we're gonna keep grinding, and that's cool. We're enjoying the process, I think, right now.
Right, and you've been through different rosters here. You've played with different musicians abroad, which like you said, you kind of have to do in a practical world, right? And from logistic standpoint, monetary standpoint, all these different factors. But right now, are you two guys kind of the core, and would you both be the touring sort of members, and then it just the other guys are kind of contingent on where you're going and scheduling and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, Josh Peters and I are the core. Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead, Mr. Peters. Tell me your thoughts on this.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're definitely the core of the group. We're the composers and the arrangers, and yeah, and at least historically, when we've toured, it's been, the two of us will go somewhere, and then we have a rhythm section that's kind of local to the area we're going to be in. And even here in Austin, like, we have multiple people in the rhythm section, because a lot of times you try to book a gig and, oh, this person can't do it. This person can't do it. Okay, this person's going to do it. So it's, that's kind of how the band operates at this point.
Right.
Yeah. And really, I mean, if you want really good musicians in your band, they're good for a reason, and they're in demand for a reason.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So if you want
the trade-off, yeah,
we want really good musicians. And fortunately, we've built this up to the point where we can get really good, players in our band. And but that's a trade-off, but that's okay. I mean, we have, it's been working. Is it always ideal? No, but it's been working, and it's cool. We like playing with the cats that we have, like Stefan Del Bosque, Aaron Parks, Jason McKenzie. These are like our rhythm section guys. And then we've had recently, Gary Calhoun James, who's been around for a long, long time.
So I guess the nice part at this point is like
version of the band.
Yeah, and you've been around long enough, right? And you've kind of networked and met and played with a lot of different people. So you have that network where, like, here's what's going on. We kind of go through the Rolodex and see who's available, and it's not always. Sounds like it's not at this point like new guys. Like, you kind of got a lot of go-tos, right?
Right,
So
exactly.
there's probably at least some sort of familiarity with the material and stuff. And then you just say, like, here's the set that here's kind of the batch of songs that we're focusing on, and revise or learn the material, and you just try to get in a rehearsal. Is there ever a fly by the seat of your pants type gig, or is it always like definitely rehearsed?
Atlas Maior is like not a gig that you can really just roll in too easily and sub on.
Not 12-bar blues.
Yeah, it's not quite like that. I mean, we need to, we have, it takes a level of trust with players for sure.
Sure, yeah,
to make that happen. Yeah, because like somebody went up to me. Okay, we played a show a couple months ago, and when our drummer that night, he couldn't make the gig because he had a heat stroke near overheating. Like, he went to the doctor, like he went to the hospital, couldn't play the gig. So last minute we couldn't find a sub, one of our crew who could make it work. So we played as a trio without drums. So it was like upright bass, oud, saxophone. It was really nice. And we've done that before. That option too. Yeah. I mean, we've done that before. It's not a preferred option always.
Yeah.
But the point is that this other drummer that was there in the crowd, he came up to me and he's like, "Oh man, I didn't know." He's like, "Man, I want to play with you guys. I knew that knowing that you didn't have a drummer." And I was thinking to myself, I didn't want to be like, "Hey man, like that doesn't happen."
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm not going to say that.
Look, dude, like your music is, what you guys do is far more. Now, there's a lot of, obviously, I mean, it's kind of a lot of it is, I guess, somewhat in that sort of jazz vein, right? You have a head or a melody, right? And then you can take it and explore a bit and then come back to it. Not everything, obviously. There's much written stuff too, but obviously you have room for improvisation. But the whole thing is not improvisation, and it's not like stepping into like a repertoire of jazz standards or blues standards. And I've dealt with that, and I think what happens sometimes too, especially perhaps maybe with drummers, is you go, I've subbed these gigs, I can pop right on in, because it's, you're always dealing with this sort of 12-bar, a shuffle or a 4/4, and you kind of catch the changes. Oh, I'll go to the right here. It's like, nah, dude, this music is not like that. Like you have got to, even with just like a rock band that has elements, mild elements of progressive here and there. It's like I've had guys want to show up and phone it in, and you're like, you cannot do that. You got to know the freaking song, man. You got to know the changes. So I can relate, and I'm not even nearly at the level of what you guys do and the complexity of what you guys do. So I agree. I mean, it's kind of, it's like I appreciate your sentiment and your confidence, but no,
right? Yeah,
it doesn't work that way.
It just doesn't work. I mean, like somebody coming in not knowing the material, it'd be. We would have what we would do is we would just start calling tunes that would work.
Right.
We'd have to change what we wanted to do completely.
Yeah.
You know.
And not only Atlas Maior performs Autumn Leaves over and over again.
Yes.
Probably not, but you never know. I mean, we can play it probably, you know.
Okay, he'll just switch keys now again. No, that's cool. Like that, yeah. It's actually great having the trio option, or even do like that. You guys can mix it up like that, and if there is a situation that you can kind of, you know, still get through the gig, right? You know, in a situation like that, and not have, because that's certainly better than just like, you know, putting a trust into some random dude coming on stage.
Not a good move. Not a good move. No. I mean, honestly, I would feel more comfortable having Peters play solo oud for 2 hours.
Right.
Doing something like that, because he would kill it.
Right.
It would be great. You know what I mean? So it's just like we have a lot of trust. Do we have flexibility? Yes. Would we like there to be, you know, everybody available at every time to rehearse three, 4, 5 times a week? That'd be great, you know.
Yeah. Not gonna happen.
Yeah. That's why we gotta get the money where, you know, better, so that we can start demanding.
Right. Yeah. I get. Yeah. Absolutely. There's a long process to this whole thing. I was gonna go. I'm afraid maybe you can do it, Vic, because I think you have better education than me. I'm looking at their website at the biography, and I was like, I'll read some of this, and I was like, wait, there's words in here I don't know how to say, so maybe I won't read it. But yeah, like I was saying a little bit earlier, it says combining elements of progressive jazz, Middle Eastern, Latin American, Indian music traditions. There's a lot of different stuff going on. Really, what I wanted to touch on was some of the places you guys have played. Yeah, tell us about so we talked a little bit like you going over to Europe and everything, but you've played some various festivals and stuff like that, right?
A little bit, yeah. Like we did, we were the cultural ambassadors of Austin. I'm sorry, the creative ambassador. It was the creative ambassadors of Austin 2019. Yes. So we got a grant and we went over there. We played the Angers, France. They have a thing called Austin Days. It's a festival.
Oh, nice.
And we played there at this really great venue called Joker's Pub. It's like this place. It looks like it's like this divey place, and you're like, what the hell? This is like the best venue in town. And then you like go to the back, and then like you go down, and it's like this great venue.
Yeah,
like with a great sound system.
Reminds me of like you see Broken Spoke from the outside, and you're like, oh, it looks like a little shack, and you go in, it's like a pretty big dance hall, you know?
Yeah. And this place has like a pretty beefed up system. It's almost like a mini. Kind of like how 1-to-1 used to be.
Oh yeah,
like really nice like that, or like ACL. It makes me a little bit of 310, but it's not as big. Yeah. But that kind of vibe, like really nice.
That's another one that recently went away, which is a total bummer, man. 1-to-1 was a cool place. You guys played there, I imagine, or?
No, yeah, for sure. Yeah, in this group as well as in other bands, and I knew. I used to work for a festival called Wobeonfest. That was a world music festival. Uh-huh. Atlas Maior actually played this festival in 2015, but I used to curate like world music events there with Jake Sudinivasan, my friend and my former boss. But we used to work with Destiny and Greg all the time. And
right, okay.
For a long time, we were doing showcases there, and everything. At that time, it was. This is over 5 years ago, but I mean, there was a lot of cool stuff happening there, and not just limited to international music, but great jazz and blues and
that's what I love.
All kinds of stuff,
those venues that really showcase a lot of stuff. Like they'll have everything from some R&B to rock to world music to jazz. I mean, it's great, you know?
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite venues? I mean, we've talked about some that unfortunately aren't here anymore, but what are some of your favorite current venues here in Austin? Or just in general that you played around the country or wherever?
Yeah.
Just say Red Rocks and then nothing else.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, here in Austin, I don't know. I always enjoy. There's some venues that I enjoy playing because of the vibe, and then there's other venues that I enjoy playing because of the actual like quality of the stage and the sound system and that sort of thing. So like, I mean, Sahara Lounge.
Oh yeah,
is always great for the vibe and the you know the people. I mean, the
such
food,
a small little hole in the wall, dude. But I always see everybody playing there, man. Like, like that musicians seem to love that place, right? I mean, it's just
it's a great place. It's a great like old school Austin kind of vibe,
right?
But the sound isn't always great, you know, and it's so there's that aspect of it.
Right.
Where it's like you love playing there for the vibe and for the people and the atmosphere, but not necessarily the sound. And then like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a place I played recently that had really felt really good. I mean, actually, Meanwhile, we had a gig in Meanwhile Brewing recently. And that was really nice. They were really big.
That's I haven't heard of that. Meanwhile,
very nice stage, good sound, pretty good crowd. People were into it. Empire, we played Empire several times recently, and that's always fun.
Yeah, I remember seeing y'all there, and I wasn't able to catch that show, but that was that the indoor Empire or outdoor?
Outdoors.
Outdoor.
Oh, it was outdoors. Wow.
Yeah, on the control room. Yeah, I think the last 3 times, we've done some pretty cool gigs there on some really great bills like since the last couple of years. So that's been nice, you know. And you're always getting like an interesting cross section of people that go there. And we try to, you know, be selective with what we're doing there with whom, and you know, making it, you know, being strategic about, you know, and in general, like being strategic about the gigs that we do choose to take on. We're playing a festival on the 24th in about a week and a half at Crashbox. It's a theater on Bolm Road. It's NMAS Fest 2022. It's the new media art and sound series or sound summit, and it's we have a special guest, Roberto Riggio, with us from Atash, and we have Indajit Banerjee as well joining us. And we're exploring. We released an album in 2014 called Palindrome, and it was a completely improvised album.
Oh wow! Oh, okay.
So now like Atlas Maior Palindrome is kind of like a like a project of the band.
I saw that on your website actually on your dates, and I was wondering what that meant in that context, because it specifically says the palindrome right there next to that.
And the idea is that we use a lot of the creative approaches and musical experiments that we use to track that record. And then, you know, in that spirit of that album, we're now using it as a project to do other creative things. We kind of brought this back before the pandemic for the same festival, but with a different configuration as a quintet with a guitar player, Jonathan Horn, who's a colleague of mine in other music settings as well. So yeah, it's fun. It's different. It's you know, it's a very organic, wild approach at times. And we go, you know, years later, you become better improvisers. You become better listeners. You become better at implementing certain ideas. So I really saw sort of like the possibilities of the Palindrome album, and then bringing that in as a project that we do from time to time. Or maybe we'll make another record like that at some point, you know. So that's been really nice, you know. And this time we have, you know, like Indian sitar, being played in probably a pretty different context
Yeah.
that he's used to playing, but like, it's a process. And anytime we do this, it really feels like, what the hell are we doing sometimes, like, is this going to work? And usually it works, but you get to a rehearsal and then, you make some changes, or like what we wanted to do with this particular festival. We realized that, we decided mutually to make some changes, and, based on conversations and things, ways to kind of articulate kind of what the sonic approaches of the show. Because it's basically like, there's no songs, it's completely improvised. So the whole 45-minute show is all improvised. So you're looking at like the whole show as like one large composition.
Yeah. That's cool, man. And so that album, that was done that way, and then you just found the moments to split it into tracks, or how did that happen in terms of putting that into a tangible album form? Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So basically, like how the original album was done is, we had a core quartet, and then we brought in different musicians to guest on the record, and then we actually had 4 recording sessions. So it was a really long process to finish the album in terms of like post-production editing.
Yeah.
The mixing, that was never an issue. It was the editing and deciding democratically what we like and who likes what, and then naming things, and then it ended up being a double album.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Let me go look here, because
you guys
have a pretty good body of work, so I was having a hard time. Go ahead, Dick.
No, I was just looking at the album on Spotify, and the way it's numbered, it looks like it's like 2 distinct sections.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was that was really interesting, because it was around this time that we were working on that album, which was around the time that we went to Turkey. So like we were like a lot of us were studying like classical Turkish music, and then we're editing like this super freeform record. Like a lot, even at that time, it was like a real big like jump and like creatively in what we were doing. So it was cool,
Very cool. Yeah, I was checking out your list of collaborators on the website, and it looks like Lulu is one of those from Thievery Corporation.
Yeah,
and listen to the music. It kind of got that, they have a very similar type of world music vibe to them as well. That's pretty interesting. Is she one of the collaborators on this album, or is that just like a gig? Or
no, I actually saw her not that long ago at Sahara Lounge a little while back. I worked with her, and myself and Charlie Lockwood, the original oud player. He and I worked with vocalist Farid Shafinury on a Persian concert, and she was a guest vocalist. So we did this whole like Persian show with her, and that's how we met, was like at the Scottish Rite Theatre. We did this whole production, and she's great, and it was great seeing her recently, and I know that she's been touring pretty heavily. But that's the interesting thing, is like, with the scene, there's a lot of crossover with groups, and it's always enriching, and it always makes for good conversations. I think, there's always a lot to learn from different people across genres and traditions, and there's always there's a lot of nights in the city. There's always a lot of music happening. There's been a lot of nights, a lot of late nights.
Yeah, I definitely dig their music. Another one that I was listening to that it's probably been a few years now since I've been listening to them, but it kind of reminds me of that same type of world music, but with distortion added to it. It's a band out of Sweden called Goat. But you probably dig it. But it's very, very similar concepts of kind of really psychedelic, dirty distortion added to it, but like this world vibe and kind of the same instrumentation. So I thought it was really interesting.
Cool.
Yeah.
I've heard of this band, but I'm not hip to the material. But I have heard of this. Yeah. Yeah.
I think I had started asking earlier about like where you record, right? Studios and stuff. And were you saying who's the upright bassist?
Gary Calhoun James.
Is
Yeah.
it is, so is one of your members, is that you work out of his studio? Is he an engineer as well, or?
Yeah, he's an engineer as well.
Okay.
I've kind of followed him. I mean, since we've been recording, Peters and I with the band, we've recorded with Gary and at King Electric, and then most recently at Hen House. King Electric closed during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So we've also worked out of his home studio. He's doing more home studio work. So yeah, he is an engineer by trade and as well as a musician. So we've recorded in a lot of different places, but with Gary, depending on what the fit was and the budget was at that time, and whatever you can do to get something off the ground. But Gary's been great, and I really trust him with these recordings, and we have a good rapport together.
How far back does he go with the band?
He actually was in the band when the band began in 2009, and then he left the band. Like he was, the band basically was like going to break up, like it was a new group, and he left the band, and then the band continued on, and then he kind of came back working with us like 4 or 5 years later, and it was like a completely different band at that point.
As an actual member of playing a performance.
Right, exactly. Yeah, sure. As a performing member of the band, he came back, and he came back like during the second incarnation of the band, when we had a new drummer. But
was he working with you guys as an engineer on the recordings in that time, or
no? He wasn't. At that time, he was not. We had
the early albums are
right.
totally different.
Right, the early albums, the Atlas Maior self-titled EP, and then our first album, Four Shades, was engineered by Josh Peters and mine, our friend Donald W. Moore, aka shout out to the Audio Whisperer now in LA.
Yeah,
but we recorded in his at-home studio. He actually had a facility off of Cameron Road for a while, in this like kind of like strange, like shady, like office building, and he had like this ad hoc studio, and like there was like an accountant next door. It was crazy. And like we would record it in the studio, and so the first 2 records were done there.
Okay.
And that was cool, so there's a lot of connections, because like Josh Peters played and Don is an engineer, he's also a guitar player.
Yeah.
And Josh Peters and I also had played in Don's bands when he was still living in Austin. He's now in LA. But he had a band for a while. Well, he has an LA called the Jazz Destroyers.
Okay.
And Peters and I played in that group when it was in Austin as well. So it was like, these are like, more connections after the fact.
Yeah. That sounds familiar too.
And actually, I think we played in that group together before you joined Atlas Maior.
I think so.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Like for a couple of years, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was even asking earlier, the chronology. Help say that word for me, somebody. I wish I could speak English. I'm supposed to be able to speak that language. But anyway, yeah, we feel like we're definitely jumping around. I'm like, is that something we talked about before we started the Zoom? But yes, but you guys had actually played together or knew each other like for a few years before, Josh Peters joined Atlas Maior.
Yeah, at least like probably, I want to say it was almost 3 years.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So back to the albums as a general, like, because it's, nowadays and with the pandemic, like you said, you got a lot of practicing and stuff. A lot of guys, myself and everybody, like everything got turned upside down. All of a sudden there were no gigs and tours, and, a lot of people, their home recording and even just any kind of, the ability to do things on your own, at least for, and get a pretty darn good demo, if not a full on recording nowadays, is definitely, an option. A lot more than it ever was. And so the Czars being a great example, we've done 2 complete soundtracks at this point, pretty much all remote, for the most part. And I did several projects. I did kind of remote, stuff like that over the pandemic. But that's, the czars are obviously different with the soundtrack, but a lot of rock and, pop and this kind of music, it's like, you're working off of a click and you lay down and a lot of times you build these things up track by track. With your music, what you guys do, now you talked about doing some overdubs and stuff on Palindrome, but like, for the most part, are you guys recording live as a group, or because it doesn't seem? I'm curious about how you. Is it always different, or are you more of a live, recording live type band, or do you? I would think you would be more that way than the sort of the layered sort of pop, more of a jazz approach, right? You're like playing together. Tell us about that? What's that process like?
Yeah, at least on the most recent record that is yet to come out, and I can't speak to Riptide or the ones before that, but the things that I've done, we've done with pretty minimal overdubbing. So we'll do 3 or 4 live takes of each track, and then go through at the end and see, okay, well, this is our favorite of this one. This is the favorite of this one.
And you're talking the whole band playing, right?
Band playing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if there are any things, if it's like, okay, we really like this take, but there's this one little thing that we want to fix, then somebody might do an overdub, or we might try to edit something in the DAW or whatever. But yeah, I think at least in recent years, and I would expect that it's been that way the life of the band.
Yeah, I think if anything, I feel like where the band is recording more efficiently, and we're knocking it out in a couple takes, and then later, like if somebody wants to overdub a solo, you can give it a rip. You right. Want to go through and do something. You want to add, like when we did these singles with Ali Pervez Mehdi, with that process, like Josh Peters did a number of percussion overdubs. Mm-hmm. I think you may have, didn't you? I think you may have re-recorded a oud solo maybe in there or something.
Maybe, yeah.
But mostly, like I myself, like I always like to give, with solos and stuff, I like to have the option of overdubbing something and getting it how you really want it. A lot of times I find that when you're recording as a live group, there tends to be a solo, that, if you have your shit together, like during the process of recording it with the band, a lot of times that solo that is the best ends up being what's played with the live band anyways.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe you fly it over from another take or something in the editing process.
But it's organic. It's in the moment.
Yeah. It's in the moment. Like the Ali Pervez stuff we did, when we did Nazuk, I think we kept my solo from like the scratch take or something, or like
it
was crazy.
It was like the first solo you did on the whole night.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We all just agreed. It was like, no, that's the one. Like that's the one we're going to use.
Said for that, man. I feel that a lot from. And from a solo standpoint in particular, right? Because it's something that's being created in the moment. It's so much of it has to do with vibe. Obviously, you don't want to be bad notes and stuff, but I found that in myself, just even in the rock genre or whatever. Like a lot of times I'll improvise something on a demo and then I'm like, I go back and learn it note for note, or have even flown it in and just, put some little audio post-production bells and whistles on it. But yeah, man, because there's something to be said for capturing the vibe. And then it's like, I don't want to mess with that once it's there if I can help it, or as little as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of times, like, that's what you want on a recording, is for you to have the most genuine, honest expression and connectedness with the band. And when you're listening to the band and together, you're creating this moment, because, like you may be able to punch in and rip some wilder lines or something, but is that really the vibe or the feeling that you're going for?
Yeah.
And because to me, that's what's most important, and if it happens to have that, well, great. But,
and that also that's a long process, both as a musician you develop all this theory, knowledge, techniques, all these things. And then it's a matter of like context, right? Yeah, I know this. I know that. Is it right for this song? Do I need to use this here? Do I need to rip here? What am I trying to say? What's the point? And it's all going to be little bit different, but I agree, man. Like once you start overthinking things, you can do it too much, and then you start kind of beating the life out of something, and whatever came out spontaneously was said in the moment. Especially like that's a 2-part thing because it's the training and the just a musician. In of themselves, right? Just the maturity as a musician to sort of know context and all that, right? But then even more so within a band and playing together and playing off of each other, right? And really that becomes a very intuitive thing. And if you nail that, like, that's great. You don't want to mess with it,
Yeah, and I think it's good to really trust like your guys, in the room or whoever, however. I mean, obviously, if you're producing music a certain way, whatever. But like, for example, like last week I was on a session, and I was tracking some solos, and I wasn't attached to anything. You know what I mean? I try to give options because we're actually retracking solos from another session, and it was like even with overdubs, it's like, well, what has the best vibe? And in this context, it was better that we had 2 horn players, soloing, kind of like looping the solos, because then you get into more of like it feels like you're really playing, and you're not just like rolling in and like punching in over.
Oh right, yeah.
There's actually like some live playing happening where we're exchanging ideas, and it's because I like creating, having as much of that as possible, an organic vibe, doing it the other way or whatever. I mean, there's a million ways to make a record and they're all valid, but for the context of Atlas Maior, this is what
right. It's contingent on what you're stylistically, and this being like, for lack of a better way of putting it, sort of like, I mean, a worldly, sort of jazz group, right? It has to do with that in the moment improvisation feel, right?
Yeah.
The goal, I guess, there. Now, when you guys so you have, the riffs and the melodies and whatever, for lack of a better way, like in the song, the context, do you feel yourself like are there certain songs where you're like, okay, this has really worked, I like the recording, and I'm kind of move along that and not deviate too far, and then maybe other stuff where you're like, now this is just where I go to the moon and back, depending, or does that change? I imagine maybe it changes based on how long you've been playing it, how long it's been around, who the musicians you're playing with, you know what I mean? Do you kind of have a different take on each song in a sense, or is it always just like reinventing it when you hit go?
I mean, I would say that I don't know how you feel about this, Peters, but like I feel like there's certain key parts of each tune, like you have written parts, written sections, and certain established approaches like that give each song its particular character. Like like there's a specific rhythm that's played here, but sometimes the solos, who the hell knows what's going to happen.
Right, however you feel that night.
I mean, it should be that. I mean, but I mean we definitely like don't stick. I mean we're definitely, we like to change things in songs that are already composed. We like to move stuff around. We like to tinker with things. We like to think about how one tune fits into a live context with going into another tune. Set lists are really fluid. They change a lot. We don't have one set.
Right.
Songs are always moving around.
Right.
And hopefully we have more and more of that happening in the coming months as we're adding new songs and material.
Yeah.
But it's always a fluid thing where we don't have like a show. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, oh, we start with this tune and we're going to end with this tune. I mean, you may come to 5 Atlas Maior shows and you may hear all 5 of those songs, but
it's not going to be the same order. It's not the same set every night, of course.
No, and it never has been that way ever.
Do you compose in terms of like, do you write the music out and say, here's, these are the melodies for this song, or is it a communicated thing, or like listen to this, and if you have any questions, let me know. Like, how do you approach it in terms of composing the composed parts?
I mean, part of the thing with Josh Peters joining the group is we had to learn how to write music together, and that was like a pretty interesting process. And it turns out that I think it's been working pretty good.
Yeah.
I think it's been working well. I mean, better than I actually thought it would be working. There's always a trial period. I mean, because we co-write stuff together. Sometimes Josh Peters will have a whole chart because he's a mastermind at charting, and he's very skilled at doing that, cranking out charts for the bass players, everything. Right. So he's definitely the scribe of the band. I'm probably the madman of the band. I don't know, or something like that. But it's a give and take. There's a lot of back and forth.
Right.
I feel like I feel one thing I really like about how we write music is that I think we're open to a lot of different things, and we don't have like attachment too much,
Yeah.
But also respecting each other's musical ideas,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, we try to, I think a lot of times we'll kind of get together and just play, and see what comes out. And somebody will play something and we'll say, okay, what's that? Let's develop that. And then we'll kind of take that through. Okay, let's see, how does it feel if it's longer? How does it feel if it's shorter? What if we put it in this meter? What if we put it in this key? What if we add this other thing to it? Okay, that's cool. What if we reverse those two things? So it's a lot of just kind of like
not afraid to experiment and
tinkering and experimenting. We might start with one idea, and by the end of the writing process, it's been transformed into something that is almost unrecognizable from what it started as, but it's still kind of coming from that place. And it's still, and in terms of like how we communicate it, it starts very orally. So we're just playing and we're talking through things and we're singing through things and we're experimenting. And then usually I'll make some kind of written, like not a full chart, but just like, here's all the ideas, here's all the little melodic pieces that we're working with. And I'll make notes about like, we're thinking about doing this, or this might be the form, and then once we solidify it, there'll be some kind of MIDI demo track created, and that'll get sent out with the chart to the rhythm section players. And we'll work with that and rehearse it. And then by the time it's rehearsed, then, a lot of times things will change in that process too.
Yeah.
Like, this, maybe I'll have an idea for a rhythm that we want to use, but then it ends up changing based on what the actual drummer is doing.
Right.
And there may be new ideas that come out of those rehearsals that we'll add into the final composition.
So you said you had a new album on the horizon, has been tracked and mixed and everything, or where are you at in that process?
Yeah. It's done. It's done. We're getting ready to make decisions about releasing it. So we're excited. It's called Hadal, and it's a pretty it's a trippy record, I would say. I don't know what to say about it. It's it's a pandemic record. We tracked it during the pandemic, so it's coming out of that spirit. And it's there's like super tight compositions, and then there's like wild freak out 9/8 rhythm expansionist concepts.
Cool.
So it's
any guest musicians on that? Were these singles? Are these singles you released recently? That's not part of that album, is it? Or
no.
No.
Yeah, on this record we have another one of our longtime bassists who now lives in France, Tarek Hassan on bass, and then we have both Stefan Del Bosque on drums and Aaron Parks on drums together. So it's a record with two drummers playing together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Let's see. What else you got? Got anything else, Vic? Because this is where we start asking random shit that has nothing to do with music. Can't just talk about music. I do, but like now I'm in over my head with all this stuff. I can't just be like, so is that like Mixolydian? I don't know. Like, One thing I am fascinated about is the microtonal, like the idea with this fretless instrument, you're kind of doing the microtones and getting all that. Now,
Yeah.
I once hung out with a band, this was years ago, that came down for South by, and they were kind of like a pop rock band or something, but I want to say they were from Turkey, and they knew these different systems, and they were talking about, 7 different tones within the spectrum of our one tone. It's kind of a crazy thing to think.
Yep.
Have you guys, I imagine if there's anyone to talk to this about, you guys would be some of the guys to talk to. Like, now obviously, like on the woodwinds and the horns, right, you're kind of limited. I guess you can kind of bend, and I mean, you can play outside, you can kind of bend.
Yeah, you can get there. Yeah.
But it's not so much maybe like the idea of the oud, right? Like where you kind of, do you think and do you hear these in a microtonal system? Are you thinking, because we have 100 cents, that's a lot, right? Between 2 notes. Is that right? Like, and so now you're almost going like, well, now you're going by 10 cents or 12 cents or 15 cents.
Yeah.
You're kind of really hearing those, which you can if you listen, right? When you're tuning.
Yeah. No, you can hear it. And if you practice and you listen within these systems, you get pretty good at hearing it. And those smaller kind of demarcations become more obvious. And you can really tell the difference between, like, for instance, there's 2 modes in Arabic maqam, bayati and rost. And they use, if you look at them written out, they're the same, but it's kind of like the difference between Ionian and Dorian. So rost is kind of more of a major, quote unquote, sound, and bayati is more of it has a flat third, but the microtonal pitches for rost, it's the third pitch, and so it sounds like kind of a flat major third, but not a minor third. And then for bayati, it's the second pitch, so it sounds like it's kind of halfway between a Dorian sound and a Phrygian sound.
Right. Okay.
But there's an even subtler difference between the two. So when you're playing rost, the microtone is actually slightly higher than when you're playing bayati.
Yeah. Do you think of microtones, if you were to dissect that and get real, is that something you could fit into cents? Could you think of it in those terms or no?
I mean, the Turks do that. They have a system called it's the Koma system, and so
you're actually labeling all these notes, like you have more notes, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, because you have 9 pitches between our one pitch.
Shit.
So 9 komas make a full semitone, right? And so when you're looking at Turkish notation and theory, it'll say, okay, this maqam has, do, and then re is 5 koma flat, and then mi is normal, and so on and so forth. So there's different accidental symbols to denotate, like, okay, this is 1 koma flat, this is 5 komas flat, this is
that's
7 koma flat, and so there's certain ones that are used more frequently, like not every koma is necessarily used, but it's kind of like cut up that way. That's where they divide it, but you don't necessarily play every single, little increment.
Do you find in general that the scales have more tones for that reason, or do you still find a lot of stuff that's similar, like a 7 tone type thing, except for that's just manipulations within each of those tones? Like,
yeah, most of them are like 7 tone scales.
That's interesting.
But it's broken up. It's not thought of as a full scale like that, the way we think about scales. It's thought of in smaller chunks, tetrachords.
Okay.
And the maqams are all built based on combining different tetrachords. So if you have so it's usually either 3 or 4 note little groupings. And so if you want, like, to go back to the maqam rost example, so rost is like 1, 2, half flat, 3, 4. And so that's the tetrachord.
Okay.
So if you stack 2 of those, so if you do a rost tetrachord and then another one, you get the full rost maqam.
Okay.
But then you can also put a different tetrachord on the top. like, and then you get a new maqam, or you can change the bottom one and you get a new maqam. And this is how you kind of modulate between, is you have these pivot notes between the two, where the two tetrachords link up.
In terms of instrumentation, is this typically a string-based instrument and maybe vocals? Like, I mean, that's such a unique style, and you get from those, vocals because of all that too, I'm assuming, right? Like, I wouldn't see it so much in the, brass and woodwind family, or am I totally wrong? Is this more of a string?
There's a lot of woodwinds.
Really
there's a lot of
that way.
Yeah.
Specifically, or
tuned specifically that way. Okay. Or just you can just do it by ear, because there's a lot of wind instruments that.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, honestly, seems like
you don't necessarily have all the pitches on your instrument, but you can hit it by ear and by,
Yeah, I would say that in a lot of ways, brass instruments, at least in my opinion, like I feel like trombone is like an instrument that can totally be a great microtonal instrument.
Oh yeah.
But I've never heard it in that context.
Well, if I was going to go try play trombone, even if I could make sound, that would be a success. And then everything would be microtonal because I have no goddamn idea how to play it. So
yeah.
Next time I see you guys play, if you're down a horn player, I'm gonna be like, hey, I could just jump up,
jump on and try.
Hey man, just come on up.
Jam, bro.
yeah, bro. It was just jamming for hours.
Yeah.
So
it'd be great.
I'm gonna de-nerdify just a hair and get back to our 12 tone system.
Yeah.
Do you guys just in nerd, harmonic nerd land over here for a minute? Are there any particular modes, scales that you find yourself using quite a bit, just stylistically that vibe with a lot of stuff you do? Any personal favorites, I guess, just as an improviser in general?
I don't know.
Maybe that's kind of a silly question. Like, what's your favorite mode? That's dumb.
I mean,
what's your favorite mode, Nick?
My favorite mode.
There you go. Let's pop that collar.
That's right.
Yeah, Dorian's great. I mean, and I don't know. I really enjoy melodic minor ascending.
The jazz melodic minor, I guess.
Right. And also the, what do they call it? Harmonic major, I think, where you have a flat 6 and flat 7. Or it's like Mixolydian flat 6.
Hold on a second.
That one's cool.
I always heard that referred to as the Hindu scale, Mixolydian flat 6.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What about the major minor? I'm a fan of that.
The major minor.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun. Yeah.
What is
we need to get back. I think it's just a flat 3.
Oh, well, like melodic minor, right?
Yeah, it's like melodic minor.
And a lot of jazz guys, right? You think kind of melodic minor, but then the altered scale, right? Just playing off of. I mean, I love that. Just the idea.
Altered scales, great. Diminished scales. Diminished scales are fantastic. I love a good diminished scale.
Let me ask you guys this in regards to diminished scale. So you have the diminished half, or whole half, and then the half whole.
Yeah.
How do you? How do I say this? Like, what's the true diminished scale? Does that make sense, right? Or there's just two ways of doing it, and you just think of the tonic either way. Are you following?
Yeah. No? Yeah. I mean, it's one. It really just depends on where you're starting, because it's all one. It's all just whole half,
mm-hmm.
But if you start on and it evokes, you get a different feeling. If you start on the half step part, you get like an altered dominant sound.
That's exactly what I was just thinking.
If you start on the whole step part, you get more of a diminished sound. But if you start on the whole step part from the third of the chord, you get a really nice altered dominant sound. So it depends from the third of the chord. So to me, it's just like whatever way you can think about it that makes sense to you is how you should think about it.
Mm.
Isn't there is there an augmented scale, right? Is that a thing? Isn't it something?
Yeah, there's a mode of melodic minor that I think kind of like gives you that sound. I can't remember which one it is. Where you get a sharp 5.
Now, when you guys are actually playing, you're probably not even like thinking a lot on this, really. Like, that's the whole thing, right? You learn this stuff, you study it, you play it, you put it in context, and then in the moment, it becomes more about like what you're trying to say, like in terms of like just sounds, right? Just sounds.
Yeah.
Got to know how to make those sounds and how to land those notes to create all those different colors, right? I was trying to talk of it in like a sonic rainbow is one way I've kind of started describing it, right? Just these different shades, right?
Yeah.
I'm just curious, like how you guys might think about that, or if you're even thinking that much, or if you're composing, are you throwing those kind of words around, or not so much?
Not so much. I mean, it's more of a thing you do in practice time, and then when it's game speed, you don't have time to think about it.
I know this, like us rock guys were like, oh yeah, play that like that Megada sounding thing, or that like, oh yeah, and that Faith No More Melvin's idea. Are you guys like, oh yeah, do that Coltrane thing? Do you guys use that? Do you ever throw any names around? Or with you guys, it would be shit I've never heard of. It'd be fucking guys from India and stuff, do that little Shankar lick. I
don't think we really do that so much.
Not so much. I mean, more kind of like, I mean, I know we've talked about like Ornette a few times in the writing process when we're working on something, and we're kind of like, oh yeah, this is kind of like sort of an Ornette Coleman vibe.
More recently,
on
the new recordings.
Yeah, on the new ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think we really do too much of that.
They'll only do it when you go and play trombone with them. When you jump up on stage, like
when you jump on the stage, we'll be like, "Hey,
go
man,
and play that shit."
do that Ravi Shankar stuff.
No, man, do that. Yeah, man, do that Faith No More shit on trombone, bro. But with E half flat quarter tone, bro.
Yeah,
that's how I play all the Faith No More songs. It's just like it's my signature way of expressing their music. The what back now, Josh Peters? We're just gonna nod and go, "Oh yeah, I love that," because we're not gonna know any oud players, but. Josh Thomson, what are some of your biggest influences just from a saxophone standpoint?
People always ask me this, and I don't have a great answer, honestly.
No, I get that, because when people go, "Who's your favorite guitar player?" I'm like, dude, I fucking I can't.
Yeah, I honestly, I listen to. It's okay, saxophonist. All right, you want names? Okay, I really like Jackie McLean. Joe Henderson on tenor. These are like great. I mean,
I have to interject real quick here because I forgot to tell you, Thompson, there was a gig we played, and that guy Joe Shackelford that I've been playing with in my kind of solo thing told me that you sounded like Jackie McLean.
Oh shit, that's a great compliment.
Yeah, I thought you'd like that.
Somebody told me recently that I have a feral quality to my playing.
A feral quality.
Yeah, I was at the Bob Bullock Museum. I was playing with Indamaj, and someone's like, "You have this feral quality to your playing," and then they're like, "I hope you're not offended by that." And I was like, "No, that's cool. That's cool." But yeah, I mean, anyways, continue. Jackie McLean. People that I respect. Like contemporary people right now, like Tim Byrne really influenced me specifically during the pandemic, watching his practice videos on Instagram. When he goes online and he's like making fun of himself because he's like not he's like obviously like social media freaks him out, but he's it's like so awkward, but they're like so great, and he's just like making fun of himself. But like like I met Tim Byrne when he came to Austin a few years ago here, and so he's a great New York alto player. Dave Rempis in Chicago is an influence of mine as well. Amir Al-Safar on trumpet. These are all people that we've actually been have been in contact with.
That's awesome.
Fortunately for us, but Coltrane is always an influence. I mean, if you play saxophone and you're not influenced by, just learning the instrument, you're like, everyone plays out of the Omni book, The Omni book is still great. It's still great. It's awesome. Like Bird is incredible, So anyways, there you go.
There you
That's
go.
something. That's something.
That's good. We wanted some names that we've heard of, and also that stuff that we can look up. That was perfect.
Okay, great. I checked some boxes here. Cool. Yeah. Well, this is checking boxes.
Yeah, you answered the question. There was only one right answer. I'm amazed you got it completely right, but you did.
Clearly, yeah. This is yeah.
Now, so Peters, you're going to name some oud players, and Vic and I are going I love that guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because it would be great to even know where do I go listen to some more of this kind of music? Because you guys are, for someone like me, I listen to a lot of different. Well, Vic too. We listen to a lot of different stuff, but this is a whole nother thing. I mean, it's very worldly, very eclectic. It's influences from all over the world. And I think it's really cool, particularly talking to guys like you, because we are going to hear names we've never heard. We are going to hear about the completely different systems, different instrumentation. Yeah. So I love just what are some names if someone wanted to kind of look into, playing that instrument, what are some big influences or names you might want to look into?
Yeah. I mean, and
trumpet too, both of those actually.
Yeah. And I was going to say too, for me being a multi-instrumentalist, I'm influenced by, when I'm playing trumpet, I'm also thinking of, oud players and also trumpet players and piano players and drummers. And the same when I'm playing oud, a lot of those other influences on other instruments are coming through too. But I think my first big influence was Anwar Brahim, who is a really fantastic Tunisian oud player who's done a lot of kind of fusion, jazz fusion stuff. And also Dhafra Youssef is a big one, kind of also in that realm of kind of that East-West jazz maqam fusion world. More traditional players, Nasir Shamma is amazing. Simon Shaheen is always great. Farid Latrash.
Munir
Bashir.
These are the heavy hitters of the instrument. Hamza Adin.
I love Hamza. I have a couple of amazing Hamza Adin records. I love particularly Nubian and Sudanese oud players too. There's it's a really cool sound. It's a lot more kind of folksy and different from the way a lot of other oud players play. But yeah, I'm trying to think of some other big names. Munir Bashir, of course.
Hamza Adin. Sorry to interject, but I was just going to say, I think it's worth noting for the sake of this podcast, a lot of people don't know that Hamza Adin lived in Austin.
Yeah.
For almost a decade in the 70s.
Yeah.
And taught at UT. And so, I sometimes talk to people faculty or people I know in the community, if there's any stories about him being here, if there's any recordings of him being here, lectures or so that's something that I feel we should try to figure that out.
Yeah.
Because it's part of the lineage and culture of our city, and most people have no idea about this. And then we're here talking about this music, and it's very relevant to note that one of the masters of the oud lived here.
Yeah.
And taught in Austin.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I missed it.
Yeah, same.
But
and where's he originally from?
Egypt.
Yeah,
San Antonio.
San Antonio.
Yeah.
Egypt. Okay.
New Braunfels, bro.
Yeah.
Shirts. Get real, man.
But yeah, those are some of the big ones that kind of pop into my head right away. And then I'm also on the oud, I'm definitely also influenced by Indian sarod players, like Ali Akbar Khan. Listen to him a lot, and his whole family. It's a similar kind of instrument in a way, and So there's some good crossover that can happen there. And then trumpet wise, it's always kind of changing for me. Like I'm, of course, Miles, Freddie Hubbard, Lee Morgan. Lately, I've been listening to a lot of Kenny Dorham and Blue Mitchell. Trying to think. And then like Amir Safar is a huge influence. Mm-hmm. Ibrahim Malouf is another big influence. But trying to think who else? Dave Douglas, Don Cherry.
Don Cherry's great, man.
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
John Hassel is a really amazing player too, in terms of like modal playing and kind of drone and electroacoustic approaches to trumpet too. This is really cool.
Yeah, I think that's cool. Like, I know it's like one of those questions. It's like, oh God, like how?
It's like I could just keep going.
I know, right? I get it, but for guys like for me and Vic, like, because if it was like a guitar player question or something, and I mean, even then there would probably be names that I'm like, oh, I really should explore that. I haven't heard that, but I kind of you kind of go, oh yeah, I know the guitar player heroes. But with these instruments, it's like completely different for me. So it's like it's cool to hear names that I'm like, some of them like, oh, I recognize that name. Oh, definitely know and have heard that.
Yeah.
And other ones, though, most of them, it's just like, I don't know who that is. It's like, okay, yeah, let's go check out some new stuff, because obviously there's just a gajillion fantastic musicians around the world. But
yeah.
Well, cool. I want to ask a question specifically, which we pretty much yammer on podcasts about this stuff anyway, because I love to eat. But with you guys being so worldly traveled and eclectic in your musical stylings, does that bleed into cuisine? Are you are there some of these cuisines from some of these regions that you're really into, or are you just like a complete fraud and where you're like burger and ketchup guys?
Well, I like to eat. Absolutely. Yeah, we've there's been a lot of Arab cooking around here lately, and I've been learning more about seasoning with sumac.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
sumac is like I could drop a bunch of names of dishes, but like sumac is like great on meat and on. I like to make it with I like to put it on asparagus.
Oh yeah!
Oh wow!
It's really good. Yeah,
it's great on just like rice too.
Great on rice. Yeah,
amazing on rice.
We like to cook a lot. And
it's great on hummus, baba ganoush. Like,
wow, cool.
Sumac is, it's amazing. Yeah, I'm a big cook. I've worked in kitchens a lot and bakeries and I mean, pretty much any cuisine you put in front of me, I'm going to eat it and enjoy it. But lately I've been doing a lot of Japanese cooking, which has been really enjoyable.
So I think Japanese, I think sushi, I think Japanese steakhouse, very Americanized. what's some
little Benihana there?
Little Benihana, right?
You and I had the Benihana, some Sapporo.
Totally authentic, yeah.
Catch the shrimp in your mouth.
Yeah. What's some authentic Japanese cuisine? What's something you might cook that what we might not know, Well,
I've been cooking breakfast actually.
Oh, okay.
Which involves like you have miso soup, you have a couple of vegetable dishes like I did a kinipera gobo, which is like burdock root and carrot that's sauteed in a particular type of broth, and then you top it with sesame seeds, and then I did like a mixed sauteed vegetable thing with turnip and cucumber and carrot with like a soy sauce based sauce.
See, it sounds great. I'm just not going to do all that because it's like
I know. I'm like,
eggs
wow,
and
man.
bacon.
Yeah.
I feel like if I was
rice and
roommates, I would be thin. It sounds amazing. It's an interesting breakfast though. Like that's not.
Well, it's a very
yeah.
It's awesome. It's like this really savory breakfast, and you have a little taste of like all these different things. So you've got rice. Rice is really your main thing. You've got a big bowl of rice, miso soup, a couple of vegetable dishes, an egg thing. So you either do like a tamagoyaki, which is like a this kind of like sweet, dense omelet kind of thing, but not like an omelet. That's kind of the only transliteration I can think of. Or you can do like a boiled egg or an onsen egg, which is like really awesome. Onsen egg, the whites don't cook all the way, but the center cooks a little more. So you have this, it's almost like a poached egg.
Yeah.
But the yolk is actually like a little bit more solid, but still kind of runny. And then you put like some soy sauce and green onions on that. And then there's usually some kind of protein element. So you either have like some tofu or like a little grilled, like a small grilled fish or something like that. But yeah, I did that breakfast a couple times this week. And then
it sounds simple, man.
Yeah, it takes some prep. Like you have
gotta
to
wake up at like 3 a.m. to eat by 8 a.m., but it's worth it.
You have to have some stuff ready to go. But yeah, makes for a great breakfast.
And what did you say the spice was that you were putting on?
Sumac. Yeah.
Sumac. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, dude. I'm all about that spice. Yeah, I'm all about almost every cuisine. I'm sure I can speak for Vic.
Yeah.
Too. Here's a question, though. Anything you don't like to eat, any food at all that you're just like, nope, won't do it?
Green bell peppers.
That's so random.
That is a random one because they're not offensive.
I don't even.
I've never met anyone that's like, I'll eat anything except for green bell peppers. By God, that's.
You just met one.
I just met you. There's the first time for everything.
Yeah, I don't have anything.
You'll eat anything.
Pretty much, yeah.
Mushrooms right out of the cow pie.
Oh well, you know, I did have what is that called? This bean curd in China. It's that fermented bean curd.
Oh yeah.
And I had that a couple times. It's, oh my God, it was like I didn't know if I hated it or if I loved it or if I was on drugs. I didn't know what was going on. I had no idea. I didn't. I was like, "What is it? Like, what am I? What am I doing with myself?" And it was like nothing. It was a very, very super, like just a. I don't know. It was a very like trippy, visceral experience.
It's a very. It's definitely the most unique tasting thing I think I've ever eaten.
It's so bizarre, and part of it was I wasn't ready for it. I didn't know.
You didn't know what was going to happen.
No, I didn't know. That's why it was so surreal because like I was at this. Yeah, I was like,
wow, that's interesting. At least
because
like
I was at
bean curd. It's like not some weird animal part. That's
like it looks like
it's like a fermented tofu product essentially.
It just really loud and pronounced, or just in general.
It hits you like a fist.
Yeah,
almost like it's almost like a sensation of like if you have wasabi. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like that, but different.
Yeah,
in its own strange, unique way. I don't know how to describe it. Yeah,
one of those guys that I know, like, but I can't help myself. Like wasabi being the perfect example. If I'm eating sushi, like the sushi can be absolutely amazing and needs nothing, and I'll eat a piece just to be like, okay, yes, this is really. But then I have to like douse it in soy sauce and wasabi to the point to where like I'm physically, sweating and hurting, but I can't help myself because it's that. So maybe I'd like this bizarre bean curd you speak.
You might like it.
Definitely try it if you get the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's like imagine like
I'm in China, I'll just
yeah.
Is that something you pick up at HEB?
Like a really stinky blue cheese.
Oh God! Well,
covered in wasabi.
Oh,
like,
is it slimy too? Like kind of the fermented slimy. I know it's Japanese.
It was kind of slimy.
It's a little slimy.
Yeah. Okay.
So like slimy tofu, blue cheese, wasabi, somewhere in that
sounds
world.
Amazing,
but kind of spicy too. Like, yeah, it's very aromatic. It's intense. It's good stuff.
Was that? So what was it called?
I don't know the name.
I don't know. I don't even know. I don't even know what the name of it is either.
Okay.
I just had it when I was in China.
It's like Vic's over there Googling, right, Vic? Because that's
no, I was just trying to look at foods that I wouldn't eat. So I was trying to think of the
Don't go
ones.
there.
Whatever the fuck that is, probably number one on the list right now.
That would be behind. That would be behind the, what was it? Balut.
What is
Those
that?
eggs, those partially fertilized eggs that are boiled that you get in like Southeast
you get
Asia.
like a baby chicken inside the egg.
Yeah. I'm staying away from those things.
How about
Go for it, bro.
Meanwhile, you're
Go
like,
for it.
fuck yeah, I love eating
Extra
live
calcium,
octopuses
man.
and shit right off the street market. You do that kind of stuff.
Go for it, man. You only live once, man. Just
Fuck
why the hell
I like
not?
that. Well, it's like, you know what?
What else are you gonna do with yourself?
That
What else are you gonna
makes
do?
sense. It makes sense that you would be like. To me, there's a parallel, like the cuisine and the you're a fearless improviser in the jazz realm, and very open to new styles and cultures. So why wouldn't cuisine be the same way? It'd be tragic if both you guys were like chicken fried steak for me. It's like the most weird thing in the world. Like these guys only eat chicken fried steak and they love America, but they're like amazing jazz musicians. How does that happen?
I fucking love America, man.
Love American chicken fried steak. Anyway, we're Atlas Maior, and here's some Indian music.
We're just gonna play this rock now for 2
Right.
hours
Yeah.
and eat KFC on stage.
Let me know when that show happens. I'll fucking be there.
Hey, your
Man, we'll do it,
trombone.
man.
Your music's just not enough. I've got to see you guys eating KFC. It's got to be reality. Once you dumb it down to reality TV level, I'll be like, yeah, man, KFC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever Sahara serves KFC, I'll be there. Just let me know.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll just bring the truck in. We'll just
Yeah,
have the
just
KFC
truck,
truck.
like featuring the.
They
Colonel.
do that now. I was like driving down the street and I saw like a Wendy's like taqueria truck. Now, have you seen this shit?
No.
It's like around now, like a
Oh, no.
Wendy's truck.
So the corporations are fucking ruining even more. Like we had our like ethnic food
Right.
trailers and signature awesome. Now like McDonald's. I'm surprised there's not a goddamn McDonald's food truck on every corner, being like, "Are you sure you want to buy that quality food?" Ours is right here too. Diarrhea in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You know you want it. I don't know, man. So what else we got, Vic? I think we're probably about it. I feel like this has been pretty good. Like once we got it rolling,
Oh, you mean after I was using sign language to communicate?
Right, after
we transcended that moment.
I'll just pretend you ate whatever that Chinese bean curd was, and you were just having an acid flat. Maybe that was it. Maybe you were having residual flashbacks.
You know what? I wish that
You couldn't
was the case,
speak.
man.
Everything was
That
actually
would've been
fine.
better.
You just
I would feel better about it. Yeah.
Yeah, everything was totally fine. It's just that shit hit you. It was somewhere in your spine, and you weren't able to speak in coherent, sentences.
Just bean curd bliss.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
man.
want some of that shit, man. Sounds good. We did it all the time back in the '60s. All right, so yeah, okay. So you got some shows coming up. Of course, this ain't going to be airing by the time you guys play. I think you said it was like the 24th, right? I doubt
Yeah.
That's right.
it'll be a few weeks, but
But
man,
we're
I might try
playing.
to
Yeah,
catch that show actually.
That's
Wait,
gonna be
August?
great.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
It's July 24th.
July 24th, which
Yeah.
may be past. But
Then
let's-
we're playing. Then we're playing August 11th at
Green Jay.
Green
and
Jay.
then, and then I think the 19th at is it Central Market?
Yeah.
Westgate. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. I
Yeah,
know
you
where
gotta
I
make
know where
movies.
we're playing. That's good.
Yeah. Well done, sir. You passed all these tests. You're doing great.
Yeah, man.
The key for you is you have to be on Zoom, and then it goes
And-
it's smooth sailing.
Fermented bean curds,
Yeah.
Yeah.
brain food.
All right. Well, you got anything else you want to plug? I mean, people can find you guys. The website's just atlasmaior.com. You're on all the socials, YouTube. Any other projects? Any other things you guys want to talk about or plug before we get out of here?
I think that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Cool. Well, Joshua Thomson, Joshua Peters, thank you guys so much for joining us and educating us on this very special podcast. We learned I mean, if I hadn't smoked so much weed and I had any capacity for memory, I would have taken away so much from this podcast. Nice thing is now it's a thing that exists, and I can come re-listen to it and be like, "Oh yeah, cool." I'm gonna check that out. So
I gotta buy a trombone. Yeah.
Oh man. I knew you guys fucked up, man. This is my new endeavor. I'm gonna go get a trombone. Start showing up at all your shows. Be like, I wish we'd have never done that podcast. Son of a bitch.
with a bag full of KFC and a trombone.
KFC.
KFC, man. Yeah.
Some fermented beans. I'll just follow you guys around. Be like, when are you gonna get me on stage?
You know what, man? We should just what we should do is we should have like some kind of random event where we take you with the KFC and the trombone with the fermented bean curd, and then we create some kind of abstract piece of artwork.
Yeah,
and then we'll project you onto stage behind the show.
I'm very much down with that idea. I'm pretty sure that as soon as we sign off, that will never have any more thought given to it. But if for some crazy reason you have a flux capacitor moment, I'm down with that. So, yeah.
Awesome, brother.
Yeah, dude. And man, it's so great seeing you again and talking, dude. I'd love to have you on a recording sometime and on something I do or whatever. And I'll be in touch with you guys, man. I'll definitely make a show and
please.
But so glad our paths crossed and I saw you.
Yeah.
And we were able to touch base and make this happen. So thank you guys so much for being on the podcast, and I'll let you know when this is coming out. And that is Atlas Maior, everybody. The two Joshes, and this is Skunk Manhattan with Victor Ramos signing off once more, very professionally. Until next time, take care.
Hey folks, that concludes another episode of the podcast. Guest links will be available in the show notes. We'd like to thank our friends at Top Shelf Music for showcasing the podcast on their site. Be sure and check them out at topshelfmusicmag.com for the latest music news, reviews, and events. We'd also like to thank the folks over at Tragan Guitars, Godin Guitars, Ernie Ball Strings, and 5 Iron Woodworks. Have a great week and catch you on the next one.